Hello,
All
I'm
right.
Donald Macaulay, and welcome to this BMJ Leader Conversation, where we talk to key opinion leaders in leadership around the world. Today, we're in the Caribbean, and today I'm talking to Jamiu Busari. Now, Jamiu's a real globetrotter, so rather than me tell you where he's been, let me ask Jamiu to give you a quick summary of where he's been in his academic career.
Thank you very much, Donald. I don't know where to start. So, born in England, and I moved to Nigeria at the age of 8 with my parents. And my first medical degree, an MBCHB, was in Nigeria. After that, I moved down to Maastricht, where I came to do a master's in health professions education. Apparently, I was one of the first pioneer students in the first course of the MHP program, Maastricht. After that, I entered into the medical program, got an MD in Maastricht, so a second medical degree. I subsequently followed on with my PhD a couple of years later, also in medical education. But after that, I did my clinical career in pediatrics. I trained in Amsterdam, and during my training to become a pediatrician, spent 2 years of training period in Curacao, which is in the Dutch Caribbean. Never heard of Curacao before in my life. The only Caribbean islands I knew of were the British Caribbean islands, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, that sort of stuff. Anyway, spent 2 years in Curacao. After that, came back to the Netherlands, went on to do my management and leadership training in the US, in Boston, Harvard Business School. Did a sabbatical, Hamilton McMaster's, for a 3-month sabbatical there. And finally found myself here in Aruba, where I currently practicing my medicine in pediatrics, and also leading the educational department, the HOH Academy at the Horacio Oduber Hospital as the dean. Yes, and I believe I've seen a lot of the world in my small period of time on Earth, I'll say.
I'm really interested in what you've written about leadership. And it's not the standard textbook leadership. One of the things that I've seen you write about is the importance of being a dreamer.
Yeah, that sort of typifies who I've been and how I've approached the world. I've always dreamt big as a child, and I would just go straight to the point. Being, I think, second generation Britain. My parents came to England from Nigeria back then. I was born in England. We're talking about the mid-60s back then. And, growing up and having to face the challenges of being part of society, being part of the community and contributing to, and aspiring, wanted to be, you've got your role models out there and you want to be like them. And that's when the dreaming starts, and you get ambitious, and then you're chasing that dream. But, learning at a very early stage that it's not a given that if you have that dream that you're going to get it, sort of motivated me and sort of typifies how far I have traveled in chasing that dream. It's been a fulfilling experience, and drawing that down back to leadership, the way I see leadership. One thing I've noticed is that it's so important to be given opportunity. It's so important to have people who are going to who will support you, people who give you who will sponsor you, who will mentor you. And that is one of the aspects of leadership that I have tried to highlight, to emphasize, and to further promote, such that everybody at least can chase and achieve those dreams they have.
Following on from this idea of leadership, and you talked about your training in America. Now, when we talk about leadership training in America, it's always very positive. But actually, what you've said is it's really important to fail. What does that mean?
This is the way I see it. So in my career as an educator, but also as a leader, there's an X number of times you have to fail in that trajectory. You can choose to be very, very careful and not want to fail, seeking perfection, not want to fail and hoping to get to A to B. There's nothing wrong about that, but it will take you a while to get to B. On the other hand, if there's a fixed number of times you have to fail between A and B, the earlier you fail and the earlier you learn from those failures, the quicker you learn what you need to learn between that period of A to B, and you even have time over to learn new things. So my philosophy is fail as much as you can, fail as much as you want, but learn failure does not mean that you're not good. Failure is an opportunity for you to learn so that you can get to your destination quicker than what you would anticipate if you were afraid to fail. Failure determines success because learning from failure provides you with opportunities to succeed further down the line.
Now, there's something else I really must ask you, because you've such experience around the world, and it's something you've written about as well. And that is the difficulties for non-white scholars to succeed in medicine. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm learning every day, because around this conversation about non-white scholars, and there's a recent paper in Nature that was just published in which they did a review across journals, and where they found out that non-white scholars don't get published as quickly compared to their white peers. If you look at editorial boards and reviewers, there aren't that many non-white scholars represented there. The paper, it's called Racial Inequalities in Journals, that was highlighted in a giant study. So what does this mean? I've experienced it personally. I'm fortunate. I think I'm fortunate enough to say I've published sufficiently. So I built a name such that it gets a bit easier. But compared to my peers, it took me quite a while to break through that bias, that pre-existent bias, that people would really value the work you're doing, and this was my strategy. I chose to focus on open access because my philosophy is I want people to read my work and not the citations and all that stuff of being published in Ivy League journals. A concrete example, getting into BMJ Leader is a testimony of how my strategy worked out for me. So I've been writing to New England Journal, to Lancet, and my papers were either they were not read or they were just sent back, and okay. And then I sent this paper to BMJ Leader, I think it was in 2019. And the challenges of black scholars in healthcare, something like that was a title. And it was received positively, BMJ Leader. I submitted a paper, it was reviewed, fast review process, it got published, it was open access. People picked it up, they read it, and they saw, and they identified. And then all of a sudden, I get noticed on the topic of how Black scholars, the challenges they're facing in healthcare, in leadership, but also in science. And one leads to the other. I get noticed by the editorial board, I send more papers, I get invited to, hey, do you want to be an associate editor for BMJ Leader? That's a big thing for me as a Black person who it's BMJ, right? So here I am today as the commissioning editor. I mean, it's a big thing for me personally, but also it resonates, and it's a message out there for other people like me who thinking like, oh, is it even possible? Well, I think it is possible. And I think that's one of the credits to the journal, making a bold statement that they want to work on representation and inclusion.
That's a really positive note, and it's wonderful to hear, because I know you've also written about the problems of hypocrisy and dishonesty in education. Is that something that's a problem as well?
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, it is. Personally, I say to myself, I've achieved a lot professionally, academically. So what I'm doing now is creating opportunities and giving back and helping those who might be facing challenges that I'm facing to support them. So that's where I am. But the truth of the matter is, it still is not equitable. If you're not white and you do not belong to that privileged group, it is challenging to break through. So I think we have a collective responsibility. I engage in conversations where I say, we all know what it means to be disadvantaged. Whether you're white or not, it doesn't really matter. We've found ourselves in situations where we've been disadvantaged. We know how that feeling is. And I focus on that feeling of being oppressed or feeling of and being disadvantaged. We recognize all of that. And it's our collective responsibility to ensure that everybody has opportunity to achieve, to grow, to dream and achieve their dreams.
Jamiu, that was just fabulous. What a lovely finish there to talk about dreaming and the importance of achieving your dreams. Yes, there are barriers, but what a positive note to finish on. Thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Omar, for this invitation, and great work you're doing.